Hello everyone, today I'm working on this 060, and the last time I did a video on these I kept complaining the whole video that these were no good. Well, I've been running the other one and I've been rather enjoying it, so I think I changed my opinion on these. I kind of like them now. So what we're going to do, we're going to add a headlight. These don't come with a headlight. So we're going to add a headlight. And this one's in pretty good cosmetic shape, except the all the side rods are detached. But I think I can fix that. And also these wheels, I think they're out, or maybe not, maybe they're okay. So we'll play around with that. There's also missing the little pin here that attaches to the tender. While I'm on the subject of the tender, let me just unroll it here. This tender, part of the drawbar here is missing, so we're going to fix that. The tender helps to pick up electricity, so I'd like to get that going. Other than that, it's in pretty good shape. I'm going to put a headlight in the back too. And then Durango and Silverton, that's kind of a nice set where it's a set that came with three very nice yellow passenger cars. Although the Bachmann engine is not narrow gauge, it's still a set that I would imagine most people would like to get. So the first part of the video, we're going to repair the engine, and then the second part will be adding LEDs. But first, I want to give you a little history lesson on these. That's the reason why I say they're bad, because the older ones are bad. This is the newer kind, it only has 2 gears. Let me just show you the older kind, what it looked like. So this is the older kind, and it has 3 gears. So this is the one you want to stay away from. It's notorious for broken gears. So I'm going to run this for you so you can see what broken gears sounds like. So that doesn't sound like a lot of fun to me. And it can't run any slower than that because the gears keep binding because they're broken. So stay away from these older ones. Thankfully, the newer ones sound much better. I'm going to do another little parenthesis here. When you're going to the dollar store, keep your eyes open. I bought these because I wanted some screwdrivers, but I got a very nice little screwdriver, but I got an unexpected bonus. It came with these little screws, which it's good to know about. You know, something like this screw here, that could be good for maybe a micro trains coupler. Or if you lose one of these little gears, one of these tiny little screws here, you could probably replace it with one of these. You know, a coupler screw like this. Little coupler screw like this here. It's nice to know you can get them at your local dollar store. Just a little additional tip for you guys today. So let's start with the disassembly proper. There's a little screw on the top here. That is what you need to get the shell off. And this just lifts up like that. I'll keep the screw in the shell, but I will... oh, this is nice. Look at this motor. Everything's new and improved. I think this is the latest version. So that should be a really awesome runner. Now, when I remove this screw, it will release the pilot beam here. And it may also release my cylinders with all my valve trains. I think I'm going to start with that. So having all this stuff loose actually helps me out. I have to loosen up this side. So these are just pry very gently under here. I'm gonna want to clean most of it up before I put it back together. This engine, it's pretty detailed. This is another little piece of detail here that's called a power reverse. I'm keeping that there. I don't need to remove that at all. So just pry very gently. That's called an excenter crank, that part. So you pull very gently on the excenter crank, then we'll remove this screw. Get yourself a box that you have, an extra box, so you can put your parts. Today I've only got the bubble wrap. That's gonna be okay. So I can just twist the hangers for the side rods, hangers for the valve. I can just twist that around and they'll come right out. And I got my little pilot beam and this stuff. Although it looks messy, it can stay like that. So I'll just push the connecting rods all the way in, but that can just stay like that. And then I've got the two main rods attached to the number 1 axle. So that can also stay like that. I don't have to remove them. And then these 2 screws will release my wheels. Actually, to tell you the truth, this probably already runs like that very good. There's a timing to these. So they're out of time. Obviously, they should be timed together. So that's one reason probably this wasn't running too well. And this wheel's completely out of gauge. So we'll re-gauge that. We'll readjust everything. So the drivers are called number 1, number 2, number 3. So we'll take note, we'll put them back in the correct order. So number 1 doesn't have a gear. Number 2 has traction tires. And then number 3 is your main rod. It does not have anything. Yes, this one too is out of time, so it must have slipped. So we'll remove that plate. That gives us access to those two little, those three axles. What I'll do for that, it's not especially dirty. I probably won't clean this bottom plate. So I'll just put it aside with its little screws in it. That makes it easy to remember what goes where. And then I can remove my 3 axles. I'll be working on that one too. And then I've got my split frame and the 2 screws that go to it. One nice detail they put, you can see all the springs for the suspension. The real steam engine you would see right through here all the way, but because it's an N scale train, you do need some strength to the frame. So they made it like that. I don't think I'm even removing this. This looks fine to me. I'm just gonna run it on my bench just to see where we're at. It's a real sweetie. It's very quiet. So that works for me 100%. I don't need to disassemble this. I am gonna clean these. I like to clean them with my rag. Now there is a timing to these. They should be a 1/4 turn apart. You know, when you do the locomotion dance, you're going 180 degrees apart with your arms. That's how our bodies are wired. But a locomotive is only a 1/4 turn apart, so 90 degrees. So as I redo the gauge on this wheel, on this axle, I will also be mindful of the angle. So these pick up electricity, both of them, and it's a split frame, so it should have decent electrical pickup. So I'm gonna clean them with my rag and I'll go wash them under my tap with some warm soap and my toothbrush. I've got my micro trains height gauge out. Did you see what's written on there? That's old enough that it says KD on it. So I'm gonna check the gauge. This is perfect, no need to change that. And also the timing, you see as this gear points down, the other one points back. So I have to make sure to maintain that for all the other gears. So as this one points down, the other side should point back. Almost right, actually. That's good enough, I think. And we'll check the gauge. Perfect. And then the number 3 driver. This one points down, this one points forward, so we got to switch that around. It has to go back. Perfect, and let's check the gauge. It has to go in just a little bit more. Still has to go in. Perfect. So we'll reinstall that. So I have them all timed perfectly. The number 1 driver doesn't have a gear, so it's not so crucial. It will find its place when I connect the connecting rod to the number 3 driver. Also, the number 2 driver doesn't have any pins on the crank, so it could be any which way and the engine will still run, but I want it to look right, so I timed it perfectly. Now I can bring in that little plate that holds everything together. I kept its little screws with it. These are very small screws, so you need to pay attention to what's going on. And they don't have to be very tight. Just hand tight will be good. So I'm going to want to go test that on the track. Because of this broken part here, the tender does help for electrical pickup, but it might be okay with just the engine. So let's go try it on the track. The 2 main rods are just hanging out on the side like that. This won't prevent me from running the engine. It just looks a little silly. That seems to run pretty good here. We have a runner. It can even go at low speeds, pretty good. I'm going to put the cylinders and valve gears back on there. So you just have to spread out the hangers. Spread them out and just guide them through the frame. I would need 3 hands to do this. But with patience, I will make it. They certainly put a lot of good details on this. I do not want to wreck this. So the idea is just to take your time, get them over all the little humps until you can make it to its spot where it should rest. So this plastic is decent quality. There, we're almost there. Now before I put this screw here, I need to make sure that I have my pilot beam in there. That's a nice piece. It's got a lot of really good detail. But that goes sandwiched in between here. And once you have it in, you will know. There, that looks pretty good. And then I'm going to bring my screw in. Should be using a Phillips, but I'm using just a normal screwdriver. And then I could put all these rods together. So first is the main rod. Actually, I'm going to use my my test leads just to move the wheel just a little bit to make it easier for myself. So just bringing the pin down to here is a big help. So I'm going to spread these out. So first is the main rod. And then we'll bring that to the wheel that goes in first. So you can spin your number one driver a little bit to get it in the correct position. So this one goes in first. And then your cylinder rod goes in second. And then your eccentric crank will pin everything down, basically. So that takes a little bit of patience, but that's the way it is with the N-scale steam. Actually, I'm going to chill a little bit and use my small oh, I'm missing one. Actually, that's okay. I can still use that and keep going. So I put that one in first. And then I can use the crank like a tool to bring it into the second one. And then I can move it back into position to where it goes. It wants to go in there, just doesn't know it yet. And then I will punch it in with my finger. Nice and easy. I'm off by just a little bit. And and there's an angle to this. You have to put in basically directly towards the axle and then back a little bit. But because this engine is very small, you don't need to give it a lot of going back. You just need 1/1000th of an inch, and that will be good. So I did the exact same thing on the other side. I'm going to test it on the bench, and then we'll go test it on the track. So I tested always back and forth, just to be sure everything's good. So that's pretty sweet. And you can see the number 1 driver is being turned by the side rods, just like the real engine. So let's go try it on the track. So that runs pretty good. Even slows down to a crawl, so I can't complain too much. So now I'm going to work on the tender a little bit. I have to repair the drawbar. My drawbar is broken here, so I have to fix that. While I was working on the locomotive, I found maybe a way that I can help re-establish the electrical path to them. So these collect the electricity from each side, deliver it for the frame by these very small wires. They don't look like much, but I think it helps some. And then the wheels are dirty, of course, so I'm gonna go ahead and clean them. I need to spread the tender open because I'm gonna put my lights in there. And then you can just come in under here and pry a little bit. This tender, it has beautiful detail also, you know, all these little bars and the fake Bachmann knuckle couplers. It's a little bit broken here. I'm gonna put some crazy glue on there, and that's gonna make short work of that. And then I noticed there's separately applied grab irons everywhere. That is nice stuff. I'm gonna make a hole here so I can put in all my my wires for my my lights. So here's what I did. I just took a little piece of cardboard to insulate the two halves, and I took a little tiny little copper wire and I bent it into shape, and that should allow me to pick up power from the tender. To repair the drawbar, I took a little piece of cardboard again and I glued it together in place with some crazy glue. So while that dries, I'm gonna make a hole for my wiring in here using my Dremel and my cutoff wheel. Now, a little bit of theory about the LEDs that I ordered. So it's 0603 white with a resistor, 12 volt. That's what you need to order. So I'll get them out of the package and we'll go try it on the engine to find out the polarity. LEDs are always directional lighting. So I want this to come on when my engine's going forward. So I have to see what needs to happen for this to light up when the engine's forward. I need 3 hands again. So you see my engine's moving forward and the light is shining, so that means I have to keep this polarity. And for the backup light I have to do the opposite. You can make this awful simple. Just attach the 2 wires anywhere to the engine and your locomotive will light up when track power comes on. I want to put reverse lighting on this, so I'm going to put all the wiring in the tender. So I have to bring power back to the tender, and I would like to have the 2 electrical wires look like wires that go to the tender to bring water to the injectors. So I'm going to try to have them come out here and here, see if that's a possibility. And then I'll bring power to the tender, and then we can wire everything up. Here's how I'm going to get power to my tender. I just take my wire and I wrap it around a piece of cardboard and I just ram it in there. That's going to get power to my tender. Now I've got my electricity to my tender, but I've got to pass my LEDs through the shell, and there's no hole for that. So I'm going to make a hole. If you don't have already a set of jeweler's drills, you should get one. They're not very expensive, and I get a lot of usage out of it. So I'm going to make a drill to pass my wires through the headlight. I made a hole through the headlight and another little hole through the shell so that I could hide my wires. I'll put something white behind it so you can see. So I can hide my wires by passing them through the shell. So I pass them through the headlight and then straight down through the shell. And I can just pull on it, and my LED is going to sit right in the headlight housing. That's going to be really neat. My circuit's made up. I've got my 2 little resistors there, and the black and the red wires leading to the lights, and they're opposite, so the different polarity. When the locomotive's backing up, the back light lights up, and when the locomotive's going forward, the front light lights up. So I have to tuck everything nice and neatly in the tender. The tender has plenty of room for that. So I tucked all my wiring neatly in there. The only thing that's left to do is go try it on the track. And now it's time to run some trains. Because the engine's smaller, the work is more difficult, but the results are more rewarding. The backup light is nice to have for switching moves. Or if you just need to back up, well, I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly had fun making it for you. See you soon.